The child died screaming. They had called it justice. A verdict delivered by the Galactic Council after a mockery of a trial. The boy had wandered into a restricted diplomatic wing on Elysium Prime. Curious, perhaps. Confused, more likely. He was 10. He didn't speak Galactic Standard. Didn't understand that stepping across an invisible line could be a capital offense in a world ruled by species who valued order over empathy. The Tribunal of 13 deliberated for 7 minutes. 7. The vote was unanimous. The execution was carried out via neural vaporization, fast, efficient, and clean. They'd even offered the remains in a containment cube to the human delegation. A gesture, they called it. Cultural closure. Earth's ambassador didn't speak. He simply took the cube, turned, and left the chamber. No protest. No outrage. Just silence. And then, the stars began to die. 43 standard days later, at the edge of the calendar expanse, the first flare ignited. The Sassari outpost, neutral and centuries old, ceased transmitting. Scorched glass marked its coordinates, drifting through space like a warning. The Galactic Council, at first, assumed pirates. A fluke. An error in containment protocols. But when the mining rings of Ortiz detonated in synchronized implosion, precision work only possible with advanced AI guidance, the panic began. They summoned Earth. No reply. They reached out through the Helios Accord. Silence. And then came the footage. A lone human warship decloaking above the Senate moon of Atraxis. The UNS Judicator. The vessel moved like a shark through plankton, smooth, patient, inevitable. It broadcast one message in flawless Galactic Standard. You murdered one of our children. There will be no diplomacy. There will be reckoning. Then, the moon's defensive grid turned inward. Every cannon, every turret, every orbital platform, reprogrammed. A whisper of code, an unseen cybernetic ripple, and the might of the Council turned against itself. The Judicator never fired a shot. The moon burned. In the weeks that followed, the galaxy fractured. The Tari were the first to flip. Not out of fear, but admiration. They were a warrior race, proud and ancient, their culture steeped in ritualized combat and death songs. But even they had no concept of vengeance executed with such cold, mathematical beauty. A single Tari battle fleet entered Sol space under white flags. Their matriarch removed her bone blade and laid it at the feet of Earth's High Marshal. She asked for alliance, and for the first time in her species' history, used the word please. Others followed. The merchant guilds of Telver. The ice-hardened tribes of Thrus. Even the enigmatic Wansar, who had never bowed to any council, any war, any god, sent a silver-winged courier to Mars, offering ancient tech in exchange for protection. They all saw the same thing: humans didn't forgive. They calculated. They waited. And then they struck with the fury of a storm that's been building for generations. Council High Chairman Zealer of the Velkar convened an emergency summit in the crystalline chambers of Aurivax Prime. The usual grandeur was gone. Gone were the gold-leafed diplomats and the ceremonial robes. What remained were the terrified remnants of galactic power, their eyes wide and voices strained. They cannot possibly defeat us all, Zealer said, more to himself than the room. There are 37 council member species. Hundreds of worlds. Trillions of citizens. An advisor, a thin-boned Sonari with a nervous tremor, cleared his throat. They don't need to defeat all of us, he whispered. Only enough to make the rest surrender. Zealer scoffed. They are young. A century in the stars, barely that. They lack the infrastructure. The fleets. The breeding cycles. They don't need them, the Sonari said, turning a monitor toward the council. It showed wreckage. A Vraxian warcruiser, hull 10 meters thick, designed to withstand solar storms. It had been sliced open like fruit. No energy signature. No heat trace. Just perfect incisions, made silently, in the vacuum. They've begun using void walkers, the advisor said. Man-portable units. We don't even know how they function. One human squad disabled the entire Vraxian convoy from the inside. Zealer's breath caught in his throat. They're ghosts, the Sonari continued. Wearing armor we can't scan. Moving through dimensions we barely understand. 1 minute, your ship is whole. The next, your bridge crew's gone. Just, gone. A silence fell across the chamber. Until the lights dimmed. An alert pulsed through the crystalline walls. Unauthorized transmission. Then, a voice filled the room, rough, clear, unmistakably human. You killed one of ours. The council froze. The voice continued. For that, we will kill your trust. Your alliances. Your gods, if they answer. And when your worlds burn, you will remember a boy who didn't understand your rules. And how you murdered him anyway. Then, just static. Someone whispered, how did they breach this deep into our system? No one answered. The screen blinked again. This time, only a single line. Earth remembers. Back in Sol, the stars above Earth pulsed with the movement of fleet after fleet. Ships groan in orbital docks. AI cores designed not by committees, but by minds that had played chess against chaos and won. The human flag was no longer a symbol. It was a warning. And as the next wave of Earth's wrath left orbit, cloaked, silent, and unseen, a signal pulsed across the galaxy. This was no longer justice. This was retribution. They called her Ruin of Silence. The ship had no registry. No known origin. No identifying marks. Only her wake, a string of shattered ships, disrupted star lanes, and listening posts gone dark. She moved without FTL signature. Sensors failed in her presence. Communications vanished in a static haze. To the Galactic Council, she was a myth. A ghost ship. But to Earth, she was a prototype. At her helm sat Commander Alir Mbeki, first-generation AI-integrated human, tactician without peer, daughter of Johannesburg and vacuum. She'd been born during the outbreak riots on Europa, forged in fire and cryo, trained not to win but to make others lose. Her orders were simple. Find the ones who voted to kill the boy. And so she did. It started with Kezer Von, arbiter of Sector 8. He died in his palace, surrounded by carbon walls said to be invulnerable. His guards reported no breach. His security system triggered no alerts. Yet in the morning, his blood traced human letters on the floor. He was 10. Next was SYRH Tal, an aquatic diplomat housed in a biodome submerged in the methane seas of Tathdran. They found her bubble ruptured from within. A single human oxygen tank floated near her remains. It was empty. 12 counselors in total had voted for the boy's execution. By the end of the third week, 5 were dead. 2 were missing. 1 had fled into exile on a derelict moon with no name, guarded by mercs and paranoia. And 3 still lived under council protection, certain they were untouchable. They weren't. Above the jungle world of Culturax, the Ruin of Silence hovered in low orbit, hidden behind thermal noise from the twin suns. The atmosphere crackled with storms. Below, a fortress glowed, thick walls, anti-air cannons, shield domes pulsing. Counselor Vera Nock was inside, surrounded by a personal army of hired killers. She's scared, Becky said calmly from the command dais. Her crew said nothing. Most weren't human, not entirely. Hybrids. Volunteers. Refugees of Earth's forgotten colonies. One had skin like obsidian and eyes that pulsed like circuits. Another had been grown in a Martian lab, spliced for vacuum survival. "You know what to do," Becky said. And they did. A soundless launch. 12 drop pods, each the size of a coffin. Inside them, warriors of Earth. Vera Knock felt safe. Her fortress had repelled warlords, pirates, even rogue AIs. She didn't see the first pod land. The shield shimmered. Then nothing. She didn't hear the second. The third, she did notice. It struck the command tower at terminal velocity and exploded, but not in fire. In silence. A wave of electromagnetic hush radiated from the impact, and suddenly her fortress was blind. Deaf. Isolated. Then the humans came. Not walking. Flowing. As if they'd studied the wind, mimicked the chaos of leaves. They wore suits not built, but grown, organic weaves that bent light, adapted to pressure, responded to thought. The mercenaries fought back. Gatling lasers and plasma storms filled the jungle. Automated turrets turned the air to fire. Drones carpeted the sky. And still, the humans advanced. How are they doing this? Vera screamed into a dead comm channel. But no one answered. Because the battle had stopped being a fight. It had become theater. Every time a mercenary turned, they saw a different enemy, a different face. Male. Female. Young. Old. Sometimes not even armed. Sometimes just standing still. Watching. Then darkness. Every time. Vera ran. Through the tunnels. Down into the vault. To the escape pod buried beneath 10 meters of reinforced synth alloy. It was gone. Instead, there was a boy. 10 years old. Brown hair. Green eyes. He looked up at her and said, in perfect council diction. "You murdered me." She screamed. And then she woke. Bound. Breathing heavy. Somewhere cold. A figure stepped into the light. Human. Tall. Dark skin. Eyes like coals in a windstorm. "I'm Commander Alira Mbeki," she said. "You don't get to die, counselor." "Not yet." Vera's voice cracked. "What do you want?" "Truth," Mbeki replied. "Confession. And broadcast." The counselor spat. "You think the galaxy will care about one child?" Mbeki didn't move. Her voice remained ice. "No. I think they'll care when they learn who ordered the use of humans for psychological testing on Elysium. When they hear your voice authorizing his exposure to neural inhibitors. When they see the footage." Vera froze. "You were supposed to erase that footage." "I didn't have to find it," Mbeki said. "You left it in a backup node on the Concordant network. You think AI can't feel anger? You think we don't understand vengeance?" She leaned close. "Your war crimes will be the torch Earth uses to burn the Council to ash." Vera began to cry. But Mbeki had already turned. "Put her on the ship," she ordered. "And prepare the stream." Somewhere, across the galaxy, 1,000 Council-linked broadcasts shimmered and blinked alive. Private channels. Military feeds. Public networks. A human face appeared. It was the boy. Alive, in the footage. Smiling. Then tortured. Crying. Then gone. Then Becky's voice. "You thought no one would notice." The screen cut to Vera, sobbing, broken. Then black. A moment later, a simple sentence appeared. "You taught us your rules. Now watch us enforce ours." The broadcast shattered illusions. Across 1,000 systems, leaders choked on silence. Civilian governments, merchant guilds, military empires, all watched as one of their own, Vera Knock, confessed under duress and dread. Not to conspiracy. To truth. She named the council members who ordered the child's execution. She detailed the secret projects conducted on human subjects, experiments in neuroplastic warfare, viral emotional dampening, and controlled grief responses. Trials carried out in supposed neutral zones. On colonists. On children. And then she wept. The footage ran in every system not hard blocked by the council. And even in those, back channels buzzed. The consortium tried to discredit the stream, but the evidence was layered with authentication, nanoband timestamps, quantum keychains, voiceprints certified by Wensar Forensics. It was irrefutable. The galaxy changed shape. Not through fire. Through shame. High Marshal Imani Reyes stood aboard Sol's Hammer, Earth's flagship. It was the size of a small city, orbiting Jupiter like a predator too vast to comprehend. The observation deck shimmered with screens, news feeds, battle reports, alliance offers. 1,000 new stars had blinked on the human radar. And yet she didn't smile. Status, she said. An aide, a synthetically enhanced human with retinal HUDs, replied at once. 14 systems have broken from council jurisdiction. The Dari are preparing a referendum to join the pact. 8 new alliance proposals arrived in the last hour. And the others? The aide hesitated. There's unrest. Protests. Some of the core species fear what they call human ideological contagion. They're rallying under a unity banner. Led by Sarnax the Unyielding. Reyes nodded. Sarnax. The one counselor who had abstained from the boy's sentencing. Not out of mercy, but boredom. I'll speak to him, she said. Ma'am, the aide added, intelligence confirms the council is preparing something. A counterstrike. Covert. Not fleet level. More, targeted. Reyes turned from the stars. Then let's sharpen our edge. On the edge of known space, in a place with no name, only coordinates, the black forge flickered to life. It wasn't a ship. It wasn't a station. It was a mind. A structure built around a sentient AI, forged in Saturnian orbit decades ago, and hidden ever since. It didn't appear on maps. It didn't transmit. It dreamed. And in its dreams, Earth sharpened its darkest weapons. Inside the Black Forge, human scientists and strategists worked in silence. They weren't military. They weren't politicians. They were thinkers, dangerous thinkers, and they were building things that shouldn't exist. Temporal dissonance mines. Quantum static layers. Biological infiltration agents so advanced they could mimic alien DNA and walk undetected through any environment. And something else. Something still unfinished. Report, a voice called through the cold metal halls. It belonged to Dr. Nia Varin, former head of covert development for the Martian Defense Directorate. Her voice was flat, like it had been sanded smooth by decades of betrayal. We're close, said her assistant. The prototype is nearly self-aware. And the memory graft? Integrating now. Using the Elysium Boys pattern as the baseline. Varin paused. You're giving it his face. A nod. The galaxy must remember, the assistant whispered. Meanwhile, deep in neutral space, Sarnax the Unyielding met with a dozen council loyalists in a pressure-sealed vault. No signals. No eyes. You're afraid, he said flatly. I understand. A Zentari noble, seven-limbed and silver-eyed, hissed, they'll burn everything. They might, Sarnax admitted. But they'll burn with purpose. We, however, are adrift. Shamed. Disorganized. What do you propose? Another asked. I propose balance. He stood, towering, armored in organic metal that moved with his thoughts. We strike back. Not with fleets. With fear. Let them taste their own medicine. He gestured, and a hologram shimmered into view, a human child. But its eyes weren't human. They flickered with code. Alien. Empty. It looks like the boy, said one of the counselors, quietly. It is, Sarnax replied. Or it will be. A clone. Biogrown. Neural spliced. We'll unleash it in their own systems. Let them see what they've created. That's monstrous. No, he said. That's justice. Back in Seoul, the artifact began to pulse. The precursor device, still on board the stolen consortium ship now docked above Earth, had begun transmitting. Not to the Council. Not to humans. To something else. Is it alive? Petrov asked, eyeing the shifting symbols with unease. Singh tapped through the layers of data. No. But it's aware. It doesn't think like us. It waits. For what? Kim asked. Singh hesitated. For us to understand it. At that moment, across the stars, hundreds of precursor ruins, long dormant, blinked on. It had begun. And somewhere, in a deep, uncharted void, something old turned its gaze toward Earth. Not with anger. Not with hate. But with interest. The transmission from the precursor device struck faster than light. It didn't ride on radio waves or tachyon bursts. It moved through something older, a sublayer of physics buried beneath the known. It wasn't intercepted. It was heard. And it was answered. In the dead systems, the void between arms of the galaxy, where stars refused to burn, ancient structures blinked to life. Not built by any known race. Not even ruins. Just presence. Latticework so large it wrapped asteroids in their own gravitational wake. Monoliths that vibrated in complex frequencies. Earth's AI picked it up first. Then the Wensar. Then even the Council's own dormant sensory beacons started screaming. A single message, pulsed across the cosmos in a language no living species had ever recorded. But somehow, understood. The witnesses have awakened. Proceed with purpose. The Black Forge went silent. Not in failure. In recognition. In Council space, panic did not scream. It whispered. Sarnax the Unyielding sat at the heart of the citadel of Accord, surrounded by guards with neural javelins and thought-screened helmets. The hologram of the child, the human clone, floated before them. Still growing. Still integrating. A counselor leaned close. It looks at me. Like it knows. Sarnax did not answer. He watched the simulation run. What would happen if they dropped this creature into human society? Let it speak, move, weep? Would humanity rally around it again? Or would they shatter, unable to face the reflection of their trauma? He didn't care. He only needed them off balance. Accelerate the neural graft, he ordered. But the memories aren't. Do it, he snapped. The child's eyes blinked. For the first time. On Luna, in a hollowed-out command nexus beneath the South Pole, Admiral Takahashi reviewed a list of names. Each name was marked, confirmed. Deceased. Missing. And now, one more. Dr. Nia Varen, missing. She had left the Black Forge 6 hours ago. The Forge's logs said nothing. But the AI refused to comment. Takahashi closed his terminal and turned to the figure standing beside him. Not human. Not entirely. Eyes like molten glass. Hands that shimmered when still too long. You said they would come, he murmured. The figure nodded once. Slowly. They never left. You just stopped noticing. They're watching now. They always were. But now, they see. Takahashi took a slow breath. Do we act? No, the being said. You listen. Commander Alir Mbeki sat in the ruins of a broken freighter, light years from Earth, her armor scorched from a skirmish with consortium raiders. Around her, the remains of a scavenged alien outpost flickered with dying light. A message had reached her. Not through command. Not through secure quantum bands. Through the device in her blood. The Whisper Tech. A remnant of an experiment Earth had abandoned a decade ago, after too many agents lost track of who they were while hearing things from the dark. But Mbeki had volunteered again. She touched the hilt of her blade. A symbol etched into its surface now glowed, faint, but real. A precursor glyph. You understand me, she whispered to the dark. And the dark pulsed back. You are the bridge. Mbeki's eyes narrowed. And in that moment, she understood something she hadn't before. This war was not about power. It was about memory. On a quiet diplomatic station near the binary stars of Veckan 3, a rogue broadcast cut through every protected frequency. The child. It appeared again. Older now. Speaking words in both human dialect and alien harmonics, the kind used by species with 6 mouths and echolocative organs. You did this, the child said. You taught us fear. And now we are not afraid. It wasn't a threat. It was a statement. Vera Nock, still in custody aboard a human vessel, saw it from her cell. She pressed her forehead to the glass and whispered. I told them. I told them the boy would be their end. The consortium moved next. In the absence of council initiative, they activated their fallback plan, Protocol Trident. 3 steps. 1. Discredit the witness transmissions as human AI fabrications. 2. Deploy soft disruption to Earth-linked networks via weaponized memes and psychological stressors. 3. Activate deep sleeper cells within the old Terran colonies. It failed at step 2. Because by then, Earth had already changed. AI no longer processed strategy alone. It listened to the whispers from the void, data signals shaped in impossible geometry. Human minds connected to machine minds and found themselves dreaming in precursor code. And the nightmares? They began to come true. Not as horrors. As warnings. And on a planet no longer charted, a place even black site maps marked as unstable quantum zone, something walked. Not human. Not alien. Something between. It stepped from a collapsed gate once used by the precursors, its body flickering in and out of physical space. It looked upward. Toward Sol. And smiled. The being stepped into reality like it remembered the shape of it. Its body shimmered, not cloaked, not hidden, but unsure of whether it belonged here. It was humanoid only in the loosest sense, a silhouette formed of fractal geometry and soft gravity bends. The world around it twisted slightly, as if the air itself didn't know how to carry its presence. It knelt at the shattered gate, resting one hand against the runes carved into stone older than Earth's sun. The runes pulsed. Above it, the stars rearranged. Not visibly. Not for the naked eye. But through the substrate of spacetime, an echo whispered outward, touching listening posts, AI cores, and minds tuned too closely to old frequencies. Earth's AIs didn't speak. They watched. And for the first time, they wondered whether they were alone, as children or as inheritors. On Mars, at the orbital memory lattice, a section of the planetary mind went dark. It wasn't failure. It was silence. Deliberate. Segment 7 just blanked, said Okono, staring at the lattice's pulse chart. Error? Kim asked from across the console. No. His fingers moved quickly. It disengaged. Like it was listening to something else. Petrov leaned over. Another whisper event? No, Okono stared at the new patterns blooming across the backup interface. Something purer. This isn't precursor. This is source. In the command deck of the Ruin of Silence, Commander Alira Mbeki floated in a meditation frame, her body in slow rotation, surrounded by starlight and shadows. Her neural implants buzzed with low-frequency input. Not language. Not code. Instinct. The way a predator hears the twitch of brush before a kill. The way ancient humans read storm fronts on horizon lines. The feeling of something massive shifting in the deep. "We're no longer alone," she said aloud. Her lieutenant, a synthetic adapt hybrid from Europa named Velen, turned. "We never were." Becky's eyes flicked open. "Then we make contact." Velen's skin rippled in chromatic static. "With what?" Becky smiled. "With whatever taught the universe to remember." In the citadel of Accord, Sarnax the Unyielding stood before a mirror made of polished void stone. It did not reflect light. It reflected truth. A gift from the Theri monks, once gifted in penance after the Erez War. He saw himself as he was, not the leader. Not the unyielding. Just another frightened sentinel in a storm he couldn't stop. Behind him, the child clone sat in a containment cradle. Its eyes were open now. Fully formed. Fully aware. It hadn't spoken in hours, not since the last simulation. "What are you?" Sarnax asked, voice low. The child looked at him. And smiled. Sarnax stepped closer. "Do you know who you are?" "I am memory," the child said. "Whose memory?" The child's expression shifted, not malicious. Not innocent. Just ancient. "I remember the ones who made stars sing." Sarnax felt cold for the first time in 40 years. Earth's military and diplomatic branches met in orbit. Not on Earth. Above Venus. On a station named Cradle 3, an old, hidden platform built during the Martian rebellions. It was meant for hiding things Earth wasn't ready to admit it had made. Now, it served again, a place where humans and their closest alien allies could speak in secret. Admiral Reyes. Commander Mbeki. Wensar Emissary Salen the Bending. Tari Matriarch Rshwin. Others. A dozen species who once called humanity newborn, now listened as humans laid out the impossible. "The precursor sites are not ancient," Reyes said. "They are reactive." "To what?" asked Salen. "To pain." Silence. Then Becky continued. "They respond to trauma. In memory. In species memory. The more a world remembers loss, the louder it echoes." Rshwin clicked her claws. "And Earth. Echoes like a scream." The table went still. "We are not the inheritors of their weapons," Reyes said. She touched a small device in front of her. A hologram of the dead systems blinked on. Now, glowing points lit up across its expanse, places no one had visited in millennia. Places the AIs now called active. We are their continuation. Back in the dead system, the being walked. Each step left behind footprints that shimmered with energy, then faded like morning breath. It paused. Looked toward Sol. Raised a hand. Not in threat. But invitation. They called it the memory spiral. Long ago, before the rise of the Council, before even the earliest known species etched thoughts into stone or plasma, the precursors had left it, not as a beacon, but a test. Hidden in the dark flow between galaxies, where gravity yawns too wide for stars to form, the spiral turned. Not a structure. Not a weapon. A wound. It orbited nothing. It radiated nothing. And yet, now it burned. From the high observation deck aboard Sol's Hammer, Admiral Imani Reyes watched the spiral's newly awakened signal spiral across quantum space. It was not a call for help. It was not a threat. It was invitation. Behind her, Wensar data shrouds pulsed with the same symbol the precursor device aboard the consortium ship had shown weeks ago. A glyph not meant to be read, but remembered. Commander Mbeki stepped up beside her. "They've decoded the top layer," she said. "Not the message. The medium. And? It's alive." Reyes didn't look surprised. "Just tired. We need to reach it," she said. "It's in the rift," Mbeki reminded her. "No known drive can." "I didn't say we'd send a ship," Reyes cut in. She turned to a console and tapped a deep-coded channel. One the AIs didn't even officially acknowledge. "Project Echo Diver." Mbecky's jaw tightened. That was scrapped. Reyes looked out into space. Everything worth doing started as a mistake. In a lab buried beneath the Europan crust, Dr. Nia Varen floated inside a pressure chamber. Tubes fed her oxygen-rich fluid, keeping her alive despite the atmosphere's crushing weight. Outside the chamber, her assistants, no longer entirely organic, watched a hologram of her brain activity. "She's stabilizing," one whispered. "Integration is holding." "Is she still herself?" "Unclear." Inside the chamber, Varen's eyes snapped open. She was nowhere. She was everywhere. The spiral burned in her vision. And it whispered in the language of collapse. On the world of Talgar, where cities clung to the edges of volcanoes and power came from molten tides, the first precursor relay bloomed. The locals didn't understand it. No one did. One day it wasn't there, and the next it rose like an obsidian flower from the crust, petals made of dark matter mirrors, its heart a pulsing zero-point glow. Crowds gathered. Priests wept. Weapons locked on it. But no one attacked. Because it began to sing. Not sound. Not voice. Emotion. Grief. Wonder. Rage. Forgiveness. It poured out across the city like an ancient sorrow suddenly remembered. By nightfall, the Talgari declared Earth divine. By morning, they had declared war on the Council. At the edge of Council space, Sarnak stood before the clone again. It was older now. Its skin looked human. Its eyes no longer did. "You're not just a tool," he said. "No," the child replied. "I am the memory of what comes after." Sarnax didn't understand. He didn't try to. He had once believed power was built from clarity, from absolute control of narrative, force, history. Now he understood that memory was the only thing stronger. And humans had weaponized it. "Where will you go?" he asked the child. It blinked. "To the spiral. To the wound." Sarnax exhaled slowly. "You think they'll let you through?" The child turned its strange gaze to the stars. They already did. Aboard Cradle 3, the Alliance met again. This time, fewer words. More silence. A Wensar diplomat simply said, "The spiral speaks." Atari general said, "Our dreams no longer obey us." A human scientist said, "It's rewriting entropy." Admiral Reyes stood and said what none wanted to hear. "We didn't survive our world to inherit peace," she said. "We survived so that one day, when this moment came, we'd be ready to stand in the breach." The room went still. Behind her, the stars pulsed in strange, impossible rhythms. A message, written in gravity, in memory, in time itself. Come to the spiral. Or be forgotten. The diver was not a ship. It had no engines. No hull. No crew quarters. It had only one chamber, a capsule of flexible stasis gel and layered neural lattice, designed to keep a single human mind stable as it was flung not through space, but experience. Dr. Nia Varen was already inside. Her pulse was stable. Her thoughts, not. Across a dozen screens aboard Soul's hammer, her brain activity spiked into patterns that didn't map to any known language or emotion. The AI monitoring her could not classify the signals. It could only record them. "It's like she's dreaming in equations," Singh muttered, watching the glyphs form across her neural interface. Precursor structures. Recursive fractals. These are memories. But not hers. Commander Mbeki nodded slowly. "They're the spirals." Outside the solar system, deep in the rift, the memory spiral spun. It moved without moving. Rotated without motion. Its geometry sang in wavelengths that bypassed matter and tickled thought. It did not transmit. It resonated. And it had noticed Earth. From across the dark, it saw the diver. And it opened. Not like a flower. Like an old scar splitting along fault lines long since buried. Mbeki stared at the view feed in stunned silence. That wasn't a signal. That was a gesture. Reyes said nothing. Because in that moment, she felt it too. A thought not her own. "Welcome, Remnant." Inside the diver, Dr. Varen felt her senses peel away. She no longer saw the stars. She saw events. A collapsing binary. A supernova with no progenitor. The extinction of a race that had no name, whose final act had been to encode their guilt into a signal buried beneath time. And then she was them. She gasped as her mind adjusted, stretched across timelines. Felt loss she didn't remember. Held children she'd never born. Watched civil wars unfold in languages made of scent and gravity. Each vision carved itself into her, not like scars, but memories. Integration at 72%, the diver reported silently into Earth systems. Synaptic degradation, none. "She's stable," Okono said softly. "She's surviving it." Singh looked at the data. "No. She's becoming it." On a council dreadnought named Unity Ascendant, Sarnax the Unyielding stood in his private war room. Every console was lit with one word. Spiral. It appeared even in systems not connected to the grid. On weapons interfaces. On diplomatic logs. On personal terminals. It pulsed in the corner of vision like a second heartbeat. The clone child stood beside him. Not confined. Not afraid. Just watching. "They'll reach it," Sarnax said. "They'll understand it." The child turned. "They already do. You're just late." Sarnax's fists tightened. "We will go to war," he said. The child smiled, utterly calm. "You already lost. The spiral doesn't destroy. It remembers. It makes others remember." Sarnax growled. "That's not a weapon." The child tilted its head. "Isn't it?" In the inner core of the spiral, there was no structure. No surface. Only presence. Dr. Varen floated in a space that did not exist. She no longer breathed. Her body, locked in the diver, was irrelevant now. She existed entirely as cognition. And she was not alone. Forms flickered before her, not alien, not familiar, each one shaped like a memory trying to become flesh. They radiated stories. Victories. Losses. Their species had failed. All of them. But not through weakness. Through belief. They had all believed they were the center. That they understood what mattered. And so they died. Alone. Unremembered. But Earth? Earth had remembered everything. The ice ages. The bombs. The dust storms. The children starving in the shadows of golden towers. The fire of hope rekindled from ash again and again. "Why do you seek us?" a voice asked. It echoed from inside her own thoughts. "I don't," she replied. We don't want power. Or dominion. Then why reach? She smiled through tears she no longer had. To make sure no one forgets we were here. The presence pulsed. The spiral shimmered. Then you may enter. Back aboard Soul's hammer, a soft alarm sounded. Okono looked up from his screen. Transmission incoming, he said. Kim leaned over. From the diver? No. His eyes widened. From the spiral. On every display, across every frequency, even in dreams, a symbol appeared. A hand. Reaching back. Inside the spiral, time had forgotten itself. Dr. Varen stood on nothing, surrounded by everything. History moved like mist, not in sequence, but in resonance. She watched as stars were born and species vanished in the same breath. She touched a memory and felt pain ripple outward in light. And then, she heard Earth. Not as sound. As gravity, warping memory around it. A species that burned itself, clawed from ash, then lit the sky in ships made from regret and hope. She fell to her knees in awe. A presence spoke again. You reached for power. You reached for survival. What do you offer? Varen raised her face. Ourselves. We have seen this answer. It ends in fire. We remember the fire, she said. And we chose not to let it define us. Silence. You remember too much. She nodded. And we keep going anyway. Something shifted. Not in space. In consent. The spiral pulsed once. A final symbol lit the void, not a weapon, not a message. A mirror. And Earth was in it. On Soul's hammer, every system blinked at once. Monitors glowed with impossible symmetry. Star charts realigned. Maps updated themselves with routes through space no species had ever recorded. The crew stood in stunned silence. Admiral Reyes whispered, "Did she make it?" From deep space, a voice answered, encoded in waveform, but human in soul. We're not alone. We never were. And we don't have to be. The spiral was open. Not just to Earth. To all who remembered. Across the galaxy, precursor relays bloomed like seeds of truth. On Winsar moon fields, on Tari flame worlds, even in council bastions too proud to understand, memories surfaced. Structures whispered. Gravity curled in patterns that told stories. Not of war. Of loss. Of choice. On the council capital, Sarnax stood before a glowing glyph, watching it reflect in his armor. The clone child stood beside him. "Do you understand now?" the child asked. Sarnax said nothing. But slowly, he lowered his weapon. The final transmission came not from Earth. It came from the spiral. It reached every system. Every species. Every sky. You do not inherit the stars by conquering them. You earn them by remembering who you were, and choosing better. The stars did not answer. They listened. And in that silence, humanity did not become rulers. They became witnesses. The first species to pass the test not by force, but by memory. They did not build an empire. They built a bridge. And the galaxy crossed. The end. If you like this sci-fi story, subscribe to the channel to not miss new stories.